Okay, I wanted to give some notes on my recent experience with the PoleMaster for polar alignment. This is the QHY CCD PoleMaster. And this is not a review of the PoleMaster itself or a demo of how it works. There's lots of examples of that different people have done on YouTube. This is a product that I highly recommend. It really makes polar alignment easy and quick as long as you have a view of Polaris from your location. I use it across all of the scopes that I own and that I use. The Club San Jose Astronomy Association, all of the club rigs as well. So we use this one camera across all of those to do polar alignment on any given night. This does seem to be kind of the shining star of QHY CCD's product line. I have had some issues with some of their other products, even returning one, the Minicam 5F, but I did want to share some of my recent experiences with that. Okay, so again, notes on my recent experience with the PoleMaster and setting up a new rig for the SJAA. This is, I'll call it rig 2. It's our CCD in quotes because it's actually a CMOS camera, CCD monochrome rig for teaching people the experience of how to use a monochrome camera and what software and hardware you might want to use with that. So let's get started. So here's an image of my observing location at home. And on the right we have my latest incarnation of my home setup, which is a tandem rig, not really relevant to this particular video, but my original water-cooled Canon T3i on a 6-inch RC now, and then in tandem with that an 8-inch RC with a narrowband filter wheel and a monochrome Nikon D50-100 water-cooled. So the Nikon camera has had its Bayer matrix removed, so it's essentially a monochrome camera, and I use that for narrowband, and I use the Canon for one-shot color. Anyway, again, not really relevant to this video, other than I use the PoleMaster to align that rig, although it doesn't ever move, so I just have to do that one time. But the point here is that because of my viewing location, can't put, this is the SJAA rig 2, which this presentation is relevant to, on the left. I can't put it too close to the other rig because then if I'm looking south is to our right here. If I'm looking south, then I'm going to obscure the views because the tandem rig will be in the way. So I've got it moved to the left, to the north, but the only problem with that is then Polaris is kind of behind a tree. So just to dig into that a little bit more, here's another view, and you can see that the tree is there. I'm actually renting this property, so I have limits on where I can put stuff and what I can do, and the landlord did give me a tree trimmer, but the pole isn't large enough to reach to the top of the tree, so I haven't been able to top that down, and so it becomes a problem to see Polaris. How this is relevant to the PoleMaster is, normally these things are supposed to mount in the polar scope hole on your German equatorial mount, so this means that it's mounted right on the right ascension axis, and that's the optimum place for the PoleMaster to be, so that the camera rotates perfectly centered around the RA. You don't have to put it there for it to operate properly. That's just the best place. So when I originally bought the PoleMaster, I knew I wanted to use it across all these different mounts, so I bought the different mount adapters that they sell for all the mounts in the club's programs, for my portable Sirius mount as well. But it turns out that it's fairly tedious to get the PoleMaster in and out of that mount. You have to do it with an Allen wrench, and it takes reaching in somewhat, and it takes time and effort. So I was looking for a better solution, and also because my tandem rig, which is the Orion HDX 110 mount, doesn't have a hole for the for a polar scope. It doesn't have a polar scope, and so I needed some way of mounting it on there as well. So what I did find is, it turns out that the gentleman I bought my first mount from, Josh Smith, came up with this 3D printed solution. So it's a little adapter, and it's just you're looking on the left here, you're looking at three different pieces. You're looking at the PoleMaster camera screwed into the adapter, and then the adapter is on a dovetail mount. That's the piece that says Los Mandi on it. So Josh is a great guy, and he's also one of the main contributors of the Astro Imaging channel. If you watch that, that's a good resource. And he sells these 3D printed adapters for the PoleMaster. So I got one of these, and I want to point out that this particular dovetail adapter, you can see on the right here, has two sets of openings. So there's one for both the Vixen V style and the Los Mandi D style, so that helps it be more versatile in the different mounts that it can connect to. And it also worked out perfectly for me on this rig, because this Vixen style happened to be the right size to also fit on a scope ring on the top of the rig that I'll show you here in a minute. So if there's anything not perfect about this little adapter that Josh made, it's that it has a single screw mounting, which means that you could mount it crooked on the dovetail adapter here. So I'm showing you, one way to figure that out, get it straight, is to check that this is the same distance all the way along here where it overhangs in the front, just to make sure that you've got it mechanically aligned with the dovetail. And then the image on the right here is just to show, again, this is the SJAA Rig 2. It's a Meade 8-inch SCT that was in the loaner program, and I rescued it for my astrophotography program, and we bought a used Atlas mount, Orion Atlas mount, and I've got this ZWO ASI 174 monochrome camera and a filter wheel, and Orion Short Tube 80 Starshoot auto guider camera as the auto guider rig. And then the thing is, the Short Tube 80 is attached to with scope rings, to scope rings on the SCT. So basically, for connecting the PoleMaster could go in the polar scope hole here on the front of the Atlas mount. It could go with this rig on the right. It could go on the bottom dovetail. But unfortunately, both of those places put, in my particular situation, put Polaris too deep into the foliage of that tree to be useful. And fortunately, I was able to connect it right here on the top of the Short Tube 80. Okay, and so then just a close-up here of how the scope rings and everything are connected together. The Short Tube 80 is a little strange in that it's short, and it has kind of two different diameter parts to it. So you'd either have to put the same diameter scope rings, you'd have to put them pretty close together, which might not be optimal, or to put them farther apart like this, you kind of need two different diameters. And I ended up with just rummaging around in my Astro parts bin. I had a ring with these three adjustments on it, and then a fixed ring, and I was able to build two of these rigs like this. Now this is always less than optimal. Ideally, you'd have the exact fit, and you wouldn't be adjusting things, but this is what I ended up with based on the equipment at hand. And this means that the optical axis of the Short Tube 80 has to be manually aligned with the SCT. And I was also pointing out that the top of this scope ring happened to be this little square shape of metal, which was fortunately the same width as a dovetail, Vixen style dovetail, which allowed me to clamp this dovetail adapter with the PoleMaster camera on it. And this flat surface here made a way to mechanically align the PoleMaster with the scope ring, which is aligned with this scope ring, so it's aligned with the SCT. So what I noticed when I first set this up is that even though I had aligned the rig with the PoleMaster, when I got into PhD2, the guiding wasn't great, and used guiding assistance, it was telling me that my polar alignment was off by like 20 arc minutes or something ridiculous. And so what I figured out was that I didn't have this front scope ring adjusted in such a way that the short tube 80 was aligned with the SCT. So what I was doing was with the PoleMaster was I was assuming that this bracket is aligned with this bracket. I was aligning the polar aligning the SCT, but since the guiding is based on the short tube 80, the short tube 80 was out of alignment with everything else. So I needed to go back and redo the optical alignment of the short tube 80 relative to the SCT to get better polar alignment, better guiding, as seen by PhD2. Just to show you kind of the challenge, even with the camera on the very top of the short tube 80, I still have to kind of barely can see Polaris over the tree. The guide camera is actually rotated 90 degrees, so this is the top of the tree, and you can see this is Polaris here. It's just barely over the tree, and the way that the PolarMaster works is you have to be able to see a few stars around Polaris. You take a template and rotate it and line it up with these other stars, and then you also have to use this star in the initial steps or a star, you can pick which one. You have to be able to see it and rotate it through about 60 degrees of arc. So I used this one here, fortunately. So anyway, it was just barely tall enough. If the tree keeps growing, I'll have a problem going forward. But this is usable. And so what I did was redo my alignment of the short tube 80, and you can see here that my polar alignment error now is 0.4 arc minutes. If you look at this, there's some other guiding issues that I need to work on with this rig, but at least now the polar alignment is correct. So the scope rings were mechanically aligned. I went and redid the optical alignment of this guide scope with the OTA by adjusting that front ring, and I had tried to do it during the day, and the problem that I had with that, there's a ridge 11 miles away from here with some radio towers and whatnot on it that I'm able to center things on, but Starshoot Auto Guider, I couldn't find any capture software that would show me an image during the day. There's nothing that would cut down the gain or do like a movie frame, because there's just no driver, I guess, that works with SharpCap or any of the other, or even in PhD2 I'm not able to shorten the exposure enough. So I ended up needing to do it at night. So what I did was I just got on a bright star using the main optical tube, the SCT. I plate solved onto a bright star and put that in the center of the field of view, and then I adjusted those 3 adjustments on the front of the guide scope with the stars up in PhD2, and placed that same bright star in the center of that field of view and locked everything down, and so that's how I optically align the 2 OTAs. So that's pretty much, I just wanted to talk about if you're using a rig like that where you've got the various different places to mount the PoleMaster, that you do have to consider that everything is mechanically and optically aligned when you do that to get good results. Thanks for watching, and here's some links. Obviously you know where my YouTube channel is because you're watching this video. The club that I'm running the imaging program for is sjaa.net, and we also have a big presence on Meetup, which is meetup.com/sjastronomy. So if you want to work with me in person, check out the Meetup site, and you can learn about the club at sjaa.net and learn about the imaging programs and meetings that we have there. So thanks for watching.